Okay, I need to turn on my camera. Right. Just a moment. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? Okay. Also turn on the chat so I can see any comments that might come in. I hope everyone is having a good day, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, Patrick. Thank you for coming in. Hello, 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 hello. I will refrain from individually saying hello to everyone because firstly, I will butcher almost half the names over here. And second, we already have quite a good turnaround so far. So yeah, in the attempts to save some time. And we're going to wait for a few minutes, wait for to see if some more people might join in. I just anyway start my screen share. In the meantime, during this conversation, during this demonstration, if anyone has any questions, feel free to share that in the chat. I think Pranav was my correspondent who's here to help me out. Will send me the questions and I'll try to take them as we do the demo. A few things, like a few initial disclaimers, like all the work we'll be doing today, I'm going to be using ZBrush. So if anyone is from, let's say, 2D background or like a different medium background, I'm still hoping you have some takeaways, but primarily I'm thinking that most of us are ZBrush users here. I'm not going to, of course, talk about how to use the software. It's more of a demonstration and more about insight into how we build good blockouts. So I'm guessing most of us are what you say avid users of ZBrush here. The next thing would be that I will try my best to complete the demonstration, which I still doubt. In a couple of hours, we'll have a finished blockout. But the goal is to first communicate the idea or the concept behind what makes a good blockout. Like that's a key goal that I have. The next thing would be to share some good techniques to how to quickly build your blockout and not fall into the trappings of a blockout which would not serve your purpose or not serve the result. We'll also kind of understand what is a good blockout essentially, right? That's also quite important to know. And yeah, so please pardon me if the blockout doesn't turn out very well today. As I said, I'm going to do my best to show a good demonstration. In the end, I do feel there'll be a strong takeaway for everyone. That is the goal. And I do value everyone taking out the time, coming in over here and having that trust or faith that you get to learn something over here in this next 90 minutes to 2 hours that we would be spending together. Anyone has any immediate questions, doubts, any things that they would like to ask before we get started?
Hey Ankit, can we record this?
I would request not. Thank you for asking, but yeah, I would request not.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. All right. You can take notes though. Like I always recommend taking notes, maybe on a pen, paper, or a book, wherever. So that's always recommended. So let's do this. Let's start with just kind of looking at what kind of demonstration you want today. I have 3 options over here. You can message on the chat what demonstration you would like me to do. There's one female, there is a male, that 2 males, of course. One is kind of like based out of a concept art, 2 are based out of photograph images still. So you let me know what you would want me to demonstrate and we can go with that. Male, but which number? So we have a lot of 2s over here. Okay, so a lot of people would want to, okay, so, okay. Suddenly one, okay, seems like there's a tie between the 1 and the 2. Let's see. I'm going to give it another minute for the messages to come in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 are for one option number 1 over here, 11 or 12. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 for females. So we have a clear winner. We're going to do the male. I'm going to ask a question before we start anything, before we start creating, let's say, this block out based on the concept. What's the first thing we should be doing? The first and foremost thing that we have to do. You can again leave your messages in the chat. Let's try to have a little bit of engagement that we can. Yes, finding reference. Yes, that's absolutely correct. I believe 90% of the times, based on my experience, issues happen with lack of references. And even if artists have reference, we are not spending time studying the reference. So even before we start doing anything in any software or any package, the work starts by collecting reference. The work starts by understanding the breakdown and how the construction works in the reference. That is the main work. Anytime you're having difficulties executing on your work, it's either to do with your understanding of the reference or either to do with your process. Process is your skill. So whenever you're faltering, issues are either happening at the reference stage or your process stage. If you're lacking in process, that means you have to build a skill. That means you spend time, do studies, and build that skill. And if that is not the case, if you have the skill, then it's most likely the reference. Getting right references from the beginning is hard. Yeah, it's kind of I can understand it's very tricky. I I use a lot of Pinterest nowadays. I know Pinterest is filled with maybe a lot of AI slop nowadays, but and I trust me, I don't use any AI references. I'm kind of against it because AI is kind of what you say an average of everything, right? So even if it's giving you a reference of a certain hairstyle, still kind of making an average in the end. So I prefer not to use AI reference, and I use Pinterest. So for example, like for this guy, right before our call, I collected a few references. I thought a lot of us would select this one, so I went ahead and collected some references for this guy over here, and we break it down, right? We break down and we understand what's happening. So we have some metal helmet, right? Yes, that's very good, Johnny. Like, yeah, not you can look at artist work if you want to keep a benchmark, but anytime you're creating something, as I have done over here, we only collect real references because real references are the truth. This is where you're deriving the truth from. Anything else is still what you say. I'm kind of on the loss of that word. Still an interpretation. Even what I'm going to do right now is it's my artistic interpretation. Interpretations are always going to have some things which are good, some things which are subjective. So artist artworks are never really recommended to be used as references. Always refer to real world references. So we have this. We have a cape. And in general, if we try to figure out the theme of this character, he seems to be a police officer, maybe based out of London, set in the early 1900s. That is the general theme of this concept, right? And that's exactly what I had to search. There was this oil lamp that he has, right? And of course, there is this military uniform belt, which we were able to find as well, and just the uniform. So let's say if I were to just re-showcase that again of how we were gathering the reference. I lost the pure ref. Okay, I'll just keep it here. So yeah, I'm using a lot of Pinterest nowadays. About 80 to 90% of my reference collection happens over here. So let's say we start with oil lamp 1900. The more closer you're able to find the words the more close you're able to find your wordings, the easier it is to nail down the reference. But the cool thing about Pinterest is it takes everything into its algorithm when it's going to try and give you a result over here. So let's say I wanted to search more of these kind of images, and it will quickly go to give me something like this. Let's say if I go from there, I hope I find what I'm looking for. And I think, yeah, we are getting that. So you can see once you click a certain image, it will show you more of those. It will start showing you more of the same images, right? And now we are able to find something very close or very similar to what we are trying to create. And that's exactly how I kind of went uh, in the search mode and got the references. So you click a certain image and it will lead you to more such images. That's how you would do it. Initially, you would need some word, some initial vocabulary to help you get started. And reference collection is also a skill. The more we do it, the better we get at it. So yeah, I would usually collect a few more, of course. But I had some initial bits which I feel are enough. The next thing, which I'm not going to demonstrate, of course, because it takes time, is we want to make sure we have a good body type. And in my case, I already have the body prepared. I already have some very generic shoes prepared as well, because shoes again take time, and I don't think we might have the time to demonstrate that. But yeah, I have a body. I even had a female ready if the goal was to start make a female character. I was prepared that way. The female body is from MetaHuman. The male one was something I made. So yeah. Okay. Before we start making the blockout, let's kind of understand why blockout is important in the first place, and what is the goal. What is the goal that we are trying to achieve? The goal is to capture the overall essence of the character that we are seeing from the concept in 3D in the shortest amount of time and the most efficient manner. That is the goal. And the key requirements to ensure that we are able to capture the essence would be to capture the aesthetics. Pardon my spelling. And two key things for capturing the aesthetics would be proportions, silhouette, and then the next thing we have to capture is the right sense of construction. This is all what a blockout needs. If you have managed to capture the aesthetics and the construction, your blockout should look good. Of course, and there is this general rule I have where the blockout shouldn't be spending days. It's a really fast and efficient process to create blockouts. And if you are able to capture the overall essence of the character or overall look of the character, in very less time, we are able to have something where we can clearly see that whether we have been able to capture the right aesthetics of the character. For example, I have some examples of blockouts over here done by the students. And most of the time, the students are spending about a week to about 5 days to 6 days working on the blockout. And when we look at the blockout, we can see it's not detailed in any way, but it looks like the concept art. That is the goal. It has to look like the character we see in the concept art. Maybe the entire high poly, we might be spending about a month or a month and a half. We are spending only 20% of the time capturing the overall essence of the character, from where we already know whether we have the design in place or not, or have we nailed the design. Because if the blockout is not working, your character will not work because you have not been able to capture the design. I hope I'm making sense, and I can take any questions you have for this explanation. But I hope from these images, you're able to see what I mean by ensuring that we capture the overall design, the overall essence, the aesthetics of the character right at the blockout stage. Because once you have that sorted, you're not worried about figuring out the design now, right? The design is already here in 3D. And now it's a matter of taking each and every element into the high poly, maybe take it to the marvelous design pass, maybe do a more refined construction for everything. But the thing is, now you're not fighting with the design. The design is already there. So do you block out the body or just the clothes? The body, it depends. If there is something like a regular human where I can get it from MetaHuman or I can get it from Scan. I prefer getting from there because building an anatomical body from scratch is very time consuming. And then there is a prerequisite where you need to be really good at anatomy. If you're not good at anatomy, then it becomes a problem. It's nothing, and there's nothing wrong using MetaHuman or scans and then building the accessories and floating on top of it. What is the other question? What happens to me is mismatch between the blockout and final volume mesh. Yes, that is something you have to constantly check. What happened? It might be a case where, let's say, you made the blockout of the belt, and when you make the final thing, it's kind of having more volume. That's more of a practice or a habit that you will have to build for yourself. Where if something mismatches with the blockout, you at least have transpose master, where you can go back with transpose masters and readjust things to have the right volume or proportions to what you got in the blockout. So this was a question by Johnny. Do blockouts also involve polypaint? Yes, I will. I'll show this. I'll explain all the things that are involved in the blockout stage. Do you use the outfit? Okay, so there is one question I can answer immediately. Do you use the outfit blockout from ZBrush to transfer it to MD? Again, it's a subjective thing. For an outfit like this, maybe it will help to unwrap it and take it to MD, and you'll get a starting point already over there. So again, it's very subjective. For something like this, I will prefer working from scratch in MD because it's a very clear contemporary garment, which we find in the real world. So we'll be able to find patterns for that and then construct that in MD. So for this, I will not take it to MD. I will build those patterns from references. So what is the other? How much estimate concept from start to finish? This is not. So this is kind of out of scope. The question that you're asking, Akhil, where how much time does it take to finish a character from start to finish? Again, very subjective. Depends on the complexity of the character. Depends on the technical budget. A general ball frame I can give to you can be anywhere between 2 months to 4 months. So that's the ball frame, but it's a big ball frame, big ballpark, right? I'll not take very specific questions right now. Kshitij is asking a very specific question of how to do certain things in MD. I want to restrict our conversation to blockouts because the moment I start answering one specific questions, we'll go into the rabbit hole of answering more and more specific questions. And for some of these, just explaining verbally might not be helpful. So I hope that is a reasonable explanation for everyone on why I cannot answer some questions. Vivo is asking a question, just a general question. You said use metahumans as base. Then what about topology, UV structures, customization, and rig? And also, if you use Marvelous, then is that the final result and refinement? Again, this is a very broad question, Vivo. There are a lot of questions coming in. And the moment I start going into this, then we will not be able to demonstrate the blockout thing. And let's kind of restrict ourselves to blockout because blockout is the first step to get right. And everything kind of follows from there. I'll try to see if I can answer this later on towards the end, but I do not guarantee. I want to see and get towards talking more about the blockout, right? So I think Asima was asking of what it takes to build a good blockout. So firstly, we want to make sure your poly count is very, very low. You don't want to have a Dynamesh. I usually don't use Dynamesh. Most of the times when I make a blockout, because a Dynamesh usually means I'm losing control unless I'm doing like a creature where there's a lot of anatomy involved and I have to build that from scratch. Then I might use Dynamesh. But for a lot of clothing based work or armor based work, I am very conscious of not using Dynamesh and working in very, very low poly count. What percentage of project do you dedicate to the blockout phase? So blockout, if your entire work is about 60 days, about 15% of this time. If whatever time you have, 15 to 20% of that, whatever time you have for the high poly. So let's say if you have 20 days for the high poly, so 20% of this will be 4 days. This is like a good ratio to follow. And when we build a blockout, we try to make sure we are building things in a logical way. So in this case, for example, I have the pockets roughly built in. I have these straps on the shoulders. I have shoes constructed in a logical way so that everything is kind of cleared out in terms of construction. I'm not trying to figure out construction later on. And I'll also make sure I model all the key elements. I'll not go into the smaller elements like buttons, but anything which is visibly important, I will try to model all of that. And something else that I'm also doing is one of the other reasons I don't want to use Dynamish is I want to make sure that Blockout is reusable for the Hyperly. And if it's because again, you're trying to leverage and be smart with your time. And again, Dynamish means, yes, you can remesh and do things, but you always want to make sure you're able to do something which is reusable for the Hyperly. As I mentioned, one of the key things is we want to make sure we are capturing the aesthetics. Polypaint is very, very helpful because it helps you see the proportions and the silhouette a lot better. Without Polypaint, things can tend to look a little flat and you might not be able to see all the issues that might be existing. So Polypaint is always very, very much recommended. This is an additional step if required. If you want to see how it's looking in the engine, do like an auto UV for your blockout, apply some quick materials, quick existing smart materials from Substance Painter, and then check it on Unreal Engine just to see if your blockout reads well or not. But it's not, this step is not required. It's just one additional check. And one key technical, make sure you always have your technical checks in place, like the scale of the model, having the right base mesh to start with, having the right fine naming conventions, having technical checks going on from the start is a good practice or a good habit to have, because you're not just building personal portfolio pieces, you're building a skill set that will allow you to work professionally in a professional workspace, right? So yes, okay, there's one more question. What things are different? Again, this is a very broad question, Ritik. Creating characters or games compared to VFX, it's a very broad question. It's not in the scope of the current conversation. So I'll try to keep these towards the end if I can. But for now, let's continue with our demonstration now. Okay, I'll just kind of quickly go through this. Benefits of Blockout, very fast to build. Because we work in low poly count, we get a lot of control. It's very easy to tweak things when we work in low poly count. Imagine you're working with a lot of polygons, and if it's dynamished, then we lose control immediately. We have, and because the Blockout is focused on capturing the construction, the aesthetics, we have the key characteristics captured already very, very early on. And now we are not worried about not having the design in place. Any inconsistencies in the concept, anything which is not clear in the concept is also figured out in the Blockout stage, because one of the key goals for the Blockout stage is to also ensure that any design challenges which are not clear or evidently clear in the concept art, we try and solve them out as well. And yeah, easy to fix. And Blockout also allows iterations. Let's say you do the Blockout, show it to your art director or the lead. They want to change a certain thing about the design. Let's say they don't like the backpack. They find it's too big and bulky. They want to change the design now. Yes, it's a change in scope, but because it's a Blockout, it can be quickly done. So it allows for quick iterations. Yeah, that's a good question. If the concept has only front view, then how do you figure out the back view? A lot of times, if the references are based out of real world, so let's say for this guy over here, the back view would be maybe me getting a back view for this thing, right? Back view for this cape. And for example, this is kind of like a fantasy helmet. So I wasn't able to get 1:1 reference for this, but I got a fairly close reference where it shows how beaten up the metal is going to be, how it's going to look. Again, I don't have a back view or multiple views, but I know it's an oil canister. So all your views or all the challenges related to the back view are solved by the references that you collect. Again, I collected only front views over here, but I would spend some time collecting some back views as well, which will help me solve design challenges. And still, there might be some which you're not able to solve. For that, you can try and do some paint overs or try to talk to your art lead and try to solve some of the challenging areas where you're unable to find back views for. Do you build a manual topology for Blockout, and if ZRemesh doesn't give? A lot of times, unless and until if it's hard surface things like this oil canister, I'm not manually building topology. And you'll see in the demonstration how good ZRemesher is to make things like clothing, where you'll get a very, very good topology as well. I'll demonstrate that in a minute. Do we get the recording? I haven't decided that yet. I'm recording this. I haven't decided whether I'll give this or not, but maybe I'll know after. If it went well, then I will see. Okay. So yeah, let's get into the demonstration. I'm gonna put this over here. Delete. So Control Shift R, so I can rescale this here. And I have this always on top. Oh, I realized I did not collect any reference for the cane, but fine. So we're going to start with the bigger elements, and in the order of construction, ideally you can start with the shoe because it's like the first layer that comes, and then we have the pants that comes on go on the top, and then we have the uniform that goes on the top. So I'm going to kind of work in the layered method. Let's say I already have some very generic shoes over here. Let me delete this thing because we don't need this now. I'm very quickly gonna change the overall silhouette and the shape for this to roughly match. It's not the same design, so but I'm just going to focus on the front because I just want to get the overall look and aesthetics in here. Don't ask why this is dynamish. I did not get the time to get the proper non-dynamish mesh over here. Okay, so let's say we have that. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to use mask lasso tool over here. And I'm going to just select the mask roughly until the ankle. I don't need to be super precise for this. Just need to be roughly in place with what I am trying to have. And then I can hit extract. Okay, the thickness is quite high. Let's change it. 0.005. Extract. 0.01. Extract. Apologies. I'll not take this call now, of course. Accept. So we have this over here. So now, of course, the topology is not good, right? Let's isolate this. So whenever you extract something, it comes with polygroups. You can isolate the outer part, delete hidden. I'm not going to talk about where these options are. I have my own UI, which I use, which makes my work very fast and efficient. But a lot of things are kind of hidden in your toolbar. So I'll just turn on double so I can see the backside. I'm going to run a little bit of polish and polish the crisp edges as well. And I'll make sure I have symmetry turned on. Keep my, so I always start with keeping my poly count as 1. And then I do remesh. You can see this, the topology is actually pretty good already. You can hit Z-remesh once again to soften out the things. And now, one of the first things that is there is the crotch is somewhere over here. And you can see I'm just making a very bad drawing for myself to understand where the crotch is. And the hips are going somewhere till here. So I'll have to move this down because it's very, very close to the crotch. Let's tone down the intensity of your mesh, the smooth brush. And I'll use the inflate brush. Inflate brush is very good to quickly build volumes. And now the goal would be to capture the proportions and capture the silhouette and the volume in place. I don't want to work on wrinkles. I don't want to try and get the wrinkles in place. If it's something that I can do quickly, then I'll do it. Otherwise, that's not the focus. And I'll also turn on dynamic, keep the subdivision at 0 and give it some bit of thickness so that I can get some sense of depth as well for this. And usually because it's this video game art, I tend to keep things a little bit more thicker than what they are in real world. So I think there was already a question by Johnny about thickness. So poly paint this roughly. It also helps in seeing if anything is penetrating or intersecting. Let's get our shoes out. See, shoes are very important. Without shoes, it's almost like your pants are hanging in the air. It doesn't look natural. So shoes are very important. So let's get it settled onto the ankle correctly. And there is a general lean look for this character, which means my base body that I have is generally having a lot more bulk than what this guy has, which means I'll have to update the body type a little bit. So I'm just going to use the pinch brush quickly to lean him out a little bit. And again, I'm not going to overdo the anatomy work over here because it's not required really. A lot of times you're just kind of imagine you're working with volumes, and someone who's lean is just kind of a lot more thinner, right? So that's what we are doing, at least roughly. So reducing the bulk over here as well. This one I did not plan for. I actually have a lean body. I should have used that. So let's see the changes. Always work on layers. I have a shortcut which for adding layers. So, okay, that's lean enough, I believe. Maybe we can tone this down a little bit more. Okay, there we go. And now we can make this a little bit more leaner. So I'm going to use a pinch brush. So how do we came to the conclusion that we need to make the body lean? I was clearly seeing in terms of proportions, the width that we see over here versus what we had earlier was very different. And whenever I was trying to make things leaner, it was penetrating through the body, which means the body was bulky. Hmm. I pressed the shortcut off for the mop brush by mistake. Okay, let's leave this for now over here, and we'll start working on the uniform next. Again, mask lasso tool, I don't need to be very precise. He also has a Chinese collar. Let's see if we can do it. Otherwise, we can just cover it with the helmet that he has. Mm-hmm. Don't need to be extremely precise, but I'll just get the rough measurements in place. Hmm. I'm wondering if I should take it so low, because I can always extend this out once I get the remeshed mesh. Okay, I think I'll stick with this. Extract this and let's give it some more thickness. 0.02. Accept. Same drill. Isolate. Delete hidden. We have some unnecessary polygons. I'm going to do auto groups or and delete that as well. Polish this nicely so that we don't have any anatomical forms. And then we will set this to 1 again, make sure the symmetry is turned on, and then hit zero mesh. I want some, I think I can optimize this a bit more. So, one thing that has happened is because we gave it a lot more thickness than what we need to. I'm going to redo that because I feel that we made a mistake. This is way too thick and I'll have difficulties then kind of conforming this into place. So I'm going to delete this. So we already have the mask. Keep the thickness back to 0.01. Extract this. Accept. Delete hidden. To call myself a proper 3D artist, what do I need to achieve the character apart from daily practice and reading anatomy books? See, I'll try to answer this as I work on this. It's a very broad question, but there is one answer from the scope of if a proper 3D artist who's supposed to get a job. Then if you're supposed to get a job, you have to see what kind of job you're applying for. If the job is at a studio that does realistic work, then yes, your portfolio should show that quality realistic work. Simple answer, but I hope you understand there's a lot of branches to this question, and I try to answer it in a simple way. So we got this, and keep this at 1, zero mesh. You can see if I did not have X symmetry on, so this is bad. X symmetry on, remesh, this is better. I think the topology count, I'll turn on half, redo. Okay, I think this should be okay. I have this stretch over here, but I think I can live with it. Or I can undo and just go with this. I think I'll go with this. I think this is fine. Let's start pulling this out. Proportionately get it down to where it's supposed to be. It's definitely going all. So let's say this is the half point. This is the half point of the thigh. It's almost reaching the half point of the thigh. Oh, that's pretty long, very long. Let's also give it some more shoulders. Give some volume over here. Turn on dynamic. You always want to see some thickness. Offset it inwards. Again, a lot of one common mistake is people tend to keep the garment very close to the armpit, which is not really the case. You always have to pull this down so that there's enough room for the garment to move around easily, or for the arms to move around. What's happening? Why is someone drawing? Aman, please don't draw. To create a character body face blockout, is it necessary to use eModeler, or can we? So anything which is based on anatomy, I tend to use, as I mentioned, I do use Dynamesh for that if it's anatomy based, because ZModeler, I mean, like you still start with primitives, right? How do you, like if you're going to poly model a head, that's going to be a death sentence to yourself. So yeah, anything which is organic, I do use Dynamesh. I'm only looking at proportions and silhouette right now. Then I'll get this construction in as well. I use the pinch brush to roughly define the crease of the shoulders because I want to see that sharp creasing over here. And I'll still have to push this down so that it's closer to the neck. And there's not much gap over there. It shouldn't feel like your blockout is kind of floating away or flying away from the body. It should feel, it should, and but that being said, it shouldn't even feel like it's like uh, slightly wrapping around. This is one common mistake I see people doing when they do blockout, where they just extract and they move on to creating parts because they think blockout is about creating parts. No, we extract, we make the construction, and then we make sure the silhouette and the proportions are correct. The fitting is correct. So here, let's do this because this is kind of important thing to get for this outfit. Then we can make the belt and then the cape on the top. So I'm going to use ZModeler now. do a bevel. Delete hidden. Okay. Use move topological tool. To, oops. Push this. Okay, so we have a little bit of that outward pull over here. Let's start getting a bit of that as well. So the poly count is a little higher than what I would want. That's the reason why it makes it a little difficult to manage this. You can always go to the Z modeler. I can remove some of these polygons so that makes it easier for me to manage that. See, so far I haven't done any retopology, right? As you can see, retopology is not required. Making this straight as well as we do it. And I'm not trying to rush anything. I'm taking my time. But the beauty of this process is you take your time and it will still give you result relatively quick and fast. I'm going to do something which is not part of the back view. It's not shown in the back view, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to give this isolation that I made different poly group. Now I will delete that off. So this is like a, let's say, design change that I'm doing, but it's more of what you say, a conscious design change based on the fact that studying enough of these labeled uniforms, they have a bit of the split on the back or on the side. It's not required that you do it, but I'm doing it because I think I can. So, and it's still okay. Collapse, edge, poly loop. There you go. Smoothen this out. When designing clothes for monster-like characters, how do you determine the correct proportions so the clothing feels believable and fits naturally with the character's anatomy? You have to get the correct body first. Kshitij, like if you're doing in a monster, have to make sure that the monster has the correct anatomy in place. And then again, nothing changes in terms of figuring out the breakdown. Like we collected references, we did a breakdown, and then we take from there. So that part doesn't change. Sculptor is good for organic sculpting. I never tried Sculptor, so I cannot comment. Someone did and who has experience using Sculptor, they can answer that. But I don't have enough experience using that. I use Dynamish. I think that has worked quite fine for me. I've seen some reels or videos where people use Sculptress. I don't think it's bad. All of these are tools in the end. It's a matter of what tool is something that you're most efficient with. And that is what you end up using the most, right? So here, one thing I can do is I want to reduce the gap between the crotch. So I'll do that. So slowly we are getting somewhere now. And again, I'm not trying to keep things overly complicated for me. One thing I can do right now is I can try and do a remesh. But X symmetry should be off. Let's see what happens. Yeah, this is what happens. So I'll not do the remeshing. So let's continue with this. Sleeves are looking fairly fine as well. Nothing too bad with that. So to make the belt, I can extract it from this itself. Sculptor is okay. Yeah, Johnny is commenting on that. I find it useful to use it with a brush with no pressure so that Okay, nice, nice, nice. That's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm just going to roughly polygroup. So I'm going to use the polygroup option, press Alt, and just polygroup this out. I'll use QMesh, polygroup island, push this out and press Control so that it kind of makes it into a separate mesh. And this is not the belt, of course. Now we have to make sure that because there is a belt over here, we can see the belt kind of causes this compression over here, right? It kind of pushes everything in. Anytime you have two elements on a character, they always look at how they interact, how they behave with each other. So I'm going to let autosave happen. And I'll see if there are any other questions, and I'll also bring some water. I'll just take this call quickly, if that's okay. My headphones also had to break now. All right, apologies for that. So do you also sculpt folds at all during the blockout? Depends again. If I have the time, I never feel it's kind of important to make some of these, and I do it. Otherwise, I'm not too bothered about it because anyways, you're going to get that in Marvelous. You'll see what I'll do in this over here. So you're talking about compression over here that we want to get. So let's do that. I'm going to separate this out, split hidden, so that this kind of gets separated. And symmetry, I'm just going to push this in so that it kind of, it's penetrating right now, but no worries. And also the thickness is not correct. We need more thickness for this. So let's make it a little bit thicker, roughly matching what we have in the reference. And we also need to make sure it's straightened out a little bit. We'll position it again once we have. Okay, no, we have to look at the position now. Turn on transparency so I can see where it's positioned. So it has to go. It's kind of sitting on top of the hips. That's the reason why we have the angle. Also, a lot of times we get this angle because of the weight of elements which are kind of falling down. Let me hide this to see, just to make sure it doesn't penetrate the body. There has to be some gap between the body and the belt, but it also shows how much I can push this in. So everything is kind of having a certain calculative approach to it. It is the calculation happens to capture the aesthetics again, to capture the construction. All right. Okay, I think I'm fairly happy with what we have. I can make a layer and just sculpt this all inwards very quickly. Maybe I have pushed this in a little too much. So I'm going to pull this out. This is a little too pushed in. So now that I have pulled that out, I can pull this out again. And we'll give that nice silhouette breakage over here. We'll make sure the fabric is kind of pushing out from here as well. There's not really folds really, but I'm trying to show the physical aspect of how the fabric is reacting with the inclusion of the belt, right? How do you deal with specific intersections like elements pulling down or dropping folds or closed open jagging? Do you make them in neutral pose polygons to move well? Okay, I'm not sure if I understand this question well. How do you deal with specific interactions like elements pulling down or dropping folds or closed? Okay, that's, yeah. Maybe you can give an example, Johnny, because not sure if I have understood the question well. I hope you're able to now see what's happening. Pants are definitely bothering me a lot, and a lot of times due to the fact that we don't have enough polygons around the crotch region. One thing I'll do is I'll quickly make this pinch over here to get the small lining in place. This is not, again, not required, but it helps to portray the construction better. And you can see that I worked on a few elements, then I kind of went back to see what's kind of working, what's not working with this one. I'll also make the overlap a little more because that's how it's happening over here. Again, focused on the construction. Let's say the jacket of this character. If you want to make it both open and closed in the game, what would be the approach? So a lot of games are not very good with simulation of clothing. I mean, like they can simulate the cape very well, yes, but opening and closing it, unless and until there was a requirement for the game where they have to show that in real time, then it would be a lot of technical effort. But the easier solution is to just make two different versions. So there is a retopo question of how to deal with retopo of the jacket. For instance, the backside of the jacket collar part, excuse me, baking is something, it's a different, what you say, like, I don't know how to explain that in a very simple way, but okay, one answer would be, let's say you had the collar and you're having baking issues on the backside. If the collar is physically a separate low poly mesh, then I will try to bake the collar separately. I know that it might be combined at some point at a certain section. I will freeze the normals, separate out the collar, bake that, and then I will bake the jacket separately. In this whole equation, I have to make sure the part where the collar and the shirt meet the normal over here, I have to freeze it so that even when I break it, even when I break the collar, the normals don't change. I hope that makes sense. It's a very technical question. Yes, it is important to add thickness because it helps you visualize the overall appeal of the character very well. I'm going to make this, and it's a very simple thing. I'll show how simple you can keep your blockouts. I'm going to just keep a cylinder here. Scale it up. So the simplest primitive that this oil lamp is basically a cylinder. So I'm just going to make that and make it taller. Position it, rotate it a little bit because it's kind of being affected due to the gravity and how it's being placed. I would probably want to give the cap on the top, but fine, we'll see. We can try and do that later. Let's push this in a little bit. And yeah, that is that. how do you pose a model for portfolio? Supposing that can be done either with, if you're having your character as metahuman, you can pose it that, you can rig it, or the easiest solution is once you have your low poly done, you pose it using transpose master. That's one of the easiest way to do it. Let's quickly make this buckle over here. So getting to some of the smaller things. Initialize. I'm going to a very simple primitive again. We'll make the borders quickly first. Polygroup island, isolate, delete hidden, dynamic. Why do I see the back? Delete hidden. Okay, that's that. Do I need to make it taller? Yes. Do I need to make it? Okay, that should be fine for now. And I will quickly make import include a. Okay, do you start texturing once you're fully satisfied the modeling, or I'm going to mute you, Sarvesh. Sorry. Do you start texturing once you're fully satisfied with modeling, or go back and forth? Hmm. Okay. Most of the times, once I'm done with the bakes, only then I start texturing. Most of the times, that's how it is. But sometimes, if I feel like I'm bored with just doing low poly and bakes, then I take a break by taking baking one small part and just texturing it. So yeah, Xiaomi, I'm happy that it was helpful. Okay, so we have this. We have to make. How do we make this? Should we take a cylinder or should we take what? Okay, let's take a cylinder. Yeah, not a cylinder. I'm just going to do the simple approach over here. Choose spear. There you go. There must be better ways, but I'm just quickly doing right now. Taking this, merging this in. Okay, so the rotation is off. I'm not going to make these clips right now because they are not important. Take this to home so that I can take this mesh, push it on the side, and I'll do a mirror and weld so I can get it on both the sides. Then we'll just merge this down so that it becomes one single mesh. Delete. It's also good to use stager as an option. Oh, wow. So that if you ever had to change this, you can always come back to stager and do that. So geometry, stager, this is the home stage. Let's unhide everything. So I always keep like a box, or sorry, a cube with a clear scale, so that I never lose the scale from my on my ZBrush file. To give some kind of textures in ZBrush, I only give poly paint. I don't give textures unless and until it's like a creature or something where I might have to poly paint a little bit more. So we can give it some poly paint as well. From poly paint, we are also able to see some intersections that are happening. Can fix that as well. This has to be scaled down and made a little bit taller. So now we can move on to the cape next. And I can, because we took a break from working on the uniform, I can see if there is any other change I want to do, and I'll do that again to get the right proportion and silhouette. I feel that it's a little too wide from the side, so we'll fix that. And also that means that the chest has to be a little bit stronger. So let's do that. Let's make the chest a bit more stronger because he seems to have stronger chest. So can we apply a displacement texture as in like a fabric texture? That is what KZ is asking. Uh, you can do that for only preview purpose, I would say. I have layers, I have to remove that. But I usually keep it for preview as well. I do not keep it when I do bakes. I usually remove it when I go to bakes. And yeah, in production as well, most of the times, no one is doing that. I'm extruding out the collar over here. Just a moment. I'll show you why only I have extruded only a single mesh. Delete hidden. Yep, there you go. So you have the Chinese collar in here. We'll quickly position it so that it's fitting nicely onto the neck. Let's give it a little bit of that outward fit as well. And the collar itself has to be a little bit straighter from the side. I'm also taking care of the fitting. Usually from the back, these collars have a bit of an angle as it goes inwards. So we'll do that. Small things like these kind of add to the aesthetic appeal of the work. Okay, so we have that. Time to make the cape. Let me save this quickly, just in case if there's a crash. So we have, this is Bloodbone, right? Bloodbone art. Bloodbone hunter. He's a British Bloodbone hunter. Okay, so the cape has a fairly different styled structure to it. For that, I'm going to append a cone first. So I'm going to take this cone and roughly take it to the shape of, make it in the shape of this cape that we have. So I'm going to delete the top, double-sided. I also want to delete a little bit of the front over here. Weird that it's doing that, but fine. I don't care for now. Just do this. Oh, I get it. Why? Delete the base. Delete hidden. Oh, damn. It was the wrong section. Front is over here. Use standard material to play around with the light to read proportions better. I usually do that again if I'm working on organic surfaces. If it's head, if it's body, it helps to use a standard material and play around with the right so lights so that we can read the forms well. Remesh. So that I have good poly structure over here. So let's start pushing this out now. Okay, I'm not going to do the autosave. I guess it's happening because of another file in the scene, which I cannot close, even though the autosave is there. I don't use ZBrush Dynamics a lot. If I have to make clothing, I will do that in MD. Like if I have to simulate clothing, like I'm already making the clothing here, but if I have to do any simulation, I do that in MD. I have very, very rarely used the dynamic clothing option from ZBrush. I know it's quite useful. I've seen some of the videos where Mokopoulos uses that very well and efficiently. So I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, but here I will not use because I'll get wrinkles and I'll get distracted by wrinkles. I rather keep my forms simple. So smooth brush modifiers. I want to keep this at 1. Yep. So I can smooth this out. What's happening? Yep. What? I have ruined my move brush by some setting. So I'm going to use move topological because that's not ruined. So we still have to kind of open this up. The cape right now is in a post state, but as in the concept, we are going to. I'll finish the cape and then I'll talk about the query, Shubham. Let me wrap this cape up so I can answer that. So right now, let's say I want to do this a little better and I don't want to fight with the mesh. So what I'm going to do is first, I'll still roughly try and position this on top over here. I think I can still remove this loop. Yeah, I can do that. Delete hidden. And you can see that it kind of wraps around the arm. But the thing is, it kind of wraps around the arm because this hand over here, now even this kind of bugged out. Yeah, because this arm is kind of raised, which is kind of lifting the cloth over here. And here we can see that the cape is kind of more above the arms. We'll do that. But first, let's get the overall scale in place. How do you divide UVs, UDIMs? It's lagging from, okay, it's lagging. Is it lagging for anyone else? Or is it only lagging for Karen? It was lagging because my my move brush was bugging out. So that's where the lag must have been seen. So let's give this a lighter color tone. I don't like bright colors. Let's get this closer again to the neck. And important thing, which we forgot, need to have some thickness. Making sure construction-wise, the thickness is consistent as well. One thing you will notice is I'm trying to avoid any sort of wobbliness or sloppiness in my work, keeping things very precise in their construction, very as clean as possible, like as clean as I can. Karthik is saying the streaming has been lagging for them. Cannot do much. Maybe it's like I do streaming very often to all the students over here in the mentorship. Doesn't lag for them a lot, or at all. Because we had our shoulders defined, this kind of works in a good way. And let's make sure the back is kind of working correctly as well. Doesn't feel like it's floating in the air. And here, if you want, you can roughly give very quick pipe wrinkles to help in selling the flow a little better. Thank you for confirming that, Akshay and Kshitij. Move this loop because that was coming in the way. I'm going to take, I'm just kind of stepping back to just see how everything looks. I want to change the posture to have a bit of this, which I'll do in Transfers Master. How many UV sheets? Oh, sorry. Yeah, KZ asked a question, how many UV sheets you would use. It's a subjective question. Again, a lot of these are very subjective. Whatever answer I'm giving is not the absolute answer, but let's say a ballpark. Ayub, I'm going to mute you. Sorry. So let's say a logical answer for something like this would be you'll have one sheet for the upper body, one sheet for the lower body and the shoes, one sheet for all the accessories, and then maybe the cape is like on a small fourth sheet. So 4 sheets, give and take. Fifth one might be there if you're able to see the body and the head. Do you keep the cape a bit floaty? Yes, we do that because we want some cloth simulation. That's exactly correct. Nabi was asking if why do we have cape floaty? Is it for cloth simulation? That's absolutely correct. I mean, my apologies, I didn't explain that. I was working on it because some of these things are pretty subconscious in the way when I'm working, I'm already kind of doing that. So you can see that it's kind of floating away from the body, which I don't want. I want it to sit closer on the body over here while not intersecting. And this is definitely raised over here on the top. It kind of raises up quite nicely over here. So how much time? Okay, we have spent about an hour doing the blockout so far, because earlier I was just kind of explaining the principles and the idea behind a blockout. So for an hour, not too bad. We are already getting a good characteristic in place. What do you think? Do you think it's kind of looking similar to what we are trying to create? So here, I want to, now I can very quickly create a very simple fold structure, not adding any polygons. My rule is not to add polygons unnecessarily. And again, we don't want things to kind of be swayed or wonky in any way. And if this helps to roughly convey the idea of what's happening here, then yes, this helps. Okay, not bad. Let's make the helmet, because that's one big thing that we need to wrap up, so that once the helmet is done, then there are a few more smaller things like buttons. You have to keep the UVs of the same clothes, the same UV island, or mixing. So you look at the textile density. I see that this one type of fabric is kind of taking about 80% of the character. And if I keep it all in one UV sheet, then textile density would be lost. So I would split this into two different sheets so that the textile density is consistent. I see that in terms of scale, this can be bigger. Let's make it bigger. Okay, yeah, let's make the helmet over here. So I think in a primitive, I can use a cylinder now. So I'm using the Q mesh option over here, as you can see, to make this. This is not good. What should we do? Okay, I will just use this as it is. For pre-production, let's say you do the blockout just like you did, but then we are going to Marvelous. You would be starting from scratch, if that makes sense. Would they give you enough time for post production like sculpting and texturing? So blockout time is something that you account for in your the entire character creation time. So let's say, for example, something like this, the high poly you're given about. So we have roughly a week in MD for this, and we have about a week and a half for finishing the high poly. So that's about 2 weeks for the complete high poly. I'm talking production standards. So you finish the blockout not more than in a day or 2 days, and you can see we spent an hour and we are almost done with majority of the blockout. A few things like the cane we might not be able to do. The shoes, I took an existing asset, which is totally fine if you're able to use that in production. Nothing wrong with doing that. So blockout time is not separate. It's something that is included as part of your, what you say, the main time that you get. Let's turn on transparency to see how much can we scale this. So we have to make it narrower for sure. But the thing is, yeah, so I have to probably make it a little bit wider. So I'm going to do a cheat over here because it's kind of penetrating a lot. Let's just check the scale. Scale wise, it does feel a little bigger than what it's supposed to be. So let's kind of get the scale in place first. And the cheat is we scale down the head a little bit. And another cheat would be just scaling this in this direction, roughly scaling this up. Sorry, I missed the start part and it's late to ask about the body thing. Is it preset type of thing you make for every character or just confused about it? So the body, Palak is asking about bodies. How do you start? For this character, I already had the body. This is like a generic male average human body. A lot of the characters are in the general male Caucasian average build body type. So this body type usually helps me designing a lot of other type of characters. In the start, I realized the body I had initially was quite bulky. So I toned down the bulk, as you can see. And yes, a lot of times you can use scan to get other body types as well, or use metahumans. So I'm going to delete the base over here. Yes. Yeah, this guy, even I realized right now, a fellow Bloodborne fan over here. This guy is, what's his name? Because I forgot his name. You gave the right name over here. Soltari. Yeah, Soltari. Yes. This guy has a smaller head. Yes. And in fact, when you look at firm software games, a lot of the characters have very small heads, kind of like an Asian thing that they do for stylization parts with the characters. So yeah, we have this. What we're gonna do now is I'm gonna just extrude this out. Over here in the front. So as we do that, I'm gonna do an insert. And in the insert, I'm gonna do multi-edge loops. Let's keep it at 2, resolution at 2, and interactive elevation. So we can get a little bit of this depth over here. But the thing is, the depth is also happening on the side, which is not correct. That is not what's supposed to happen. Just going to bend this over here. And then I'm going to remove this part. Okay, let's see. Placement point, this is still very big, but we'll fix that. Is this correct? I think I have to remove a bit more. Okay. Maybe this one as well. Okay, that should be good. Delete hidden, dynamic. Give it some thickness. Metal can have some more thickness to it. And I'm using the pinch brush to make it a little bit leaner, and I'll also use the move brush, push this in roughly. I do want to make the hole because that's a key characteristic. So how would you subdivide the parts that you will start from scratch and the ones that you'll directly sculpt over the blockout? Okay, Asima, I'm not able to understand the question very well. How would you divide the parts that you will start from scratch and the ones you will directly sculpt over the blockout? Okay, I kind of get half of it, but I don't get the rest of it. You might have to rephrase. Ritik is asking for portfolio building 3D character artist job. Is it better to only be doing high poly characters, giving more time to do more characters? For portfolio, full characters, never just high poly, always full characters. If you do only high polys, that will not land you a job, because you're being hired for the complete pipeline. You're not being hired for only one thing, right? So we have, I think proportion wise, I made this a little bigger than what it was supposed to be. So let's make the eye somewhere over here. If I have to be very precise, yeah, that's where it's supposed to be. So split, deleted in. I'm gonna make this a little bit leaner over here. So one thing I do realize is that this has to go a bit more squished in, and this has to now come out because it's kind of covering on top of our collar over here. Sorry, covering the helmet over here. I would definitely take a little bit of creative freedom to deform a little bit of the helmet. To accommodate the cape and for the final character, what would costume? For the final character, what parts of the costume would you start from scratch, like an MD, and what parts would you continue in ZBrush? Anything which is clothing related, I would do that in MD. So that is something that I'm building from scratch. Anything that is hard surface, I'll do that in ZBrush. So let me now change the posture a little bit, because that's one important thing for me to do. So the question Vivo is asking is, can't we just block out the clothing in Marvelous? So what happens is Marvelous, a lot of times when you're new, is a software which causes a distraction. And the distraction happens because we tend to look at folds. When you look at folds, you are not focusing on the important things which are key to capturing the character, which are the aesthetics and construction. While you're working on the construction in MD, aesthetics is something that you tend to lose on because you're focused on folds. Because MD showing you that you cannot unsee it. When in ZBrush over here, working at a lower poly count, you can see that I do not have the liberty of sculpting any folds, right? So that way, I am in somehow like I'm looking only at the aesthetics and nothing else. So I hope that is making sense. I remeshed it so that I have some more topology. The helmet is bothering me. Let's give it some nice flare to the collar. It's kind of flaring outwards nicely. Give it some more characteristic. Then what is this? Then what's the stage first blockout in a way and replace it with marvelous, or stage for beginners, or does an expert jump straight to MD? Depends on the production pipeline. Some production pipeline require, even though you're an expert, to work and create a blockout. And some pipelines, if a person is already an expert, they would probably directly jump in MD. But let's say if I were to do this, I would still make the blockout. It's not taking a lot of time, as you can see. It's not taking a lot of time for me to do it. So I would do it because I solve a lot of challenge. Blockout is not just for building forms and proportions, right? You're also solving any design challenges. So for example, I'm seeing the helmet is not working well, so I'm trying to solve that, right? I see a lot of people are kind of fighting why we need to do the blockout. You are very quickly able to see your end result of the character. You can see whether it's going to work or not. In MD, you cannot do it in such short time. So you're fighting and trying to figure out after a week whether your character is looking good or not. When you do this, yes, you have to create things from scratch in MD, but at least your mind has a mental model or a framework of how it's supposed to look. That is the reason why this stage I usually keep it very vital or essential, in fact, to do. And it's not just a beginner thing. It's something I would say it's quite vital. Yes, thank you for coming, Arvind. Aditya, I'm not be able to answer that question. It's a very elaborate question on how to choose references, really. Yeah, this needs to be narrower so that I can push this in closer. Okay. Okay, let's add some buttons over here quickly. So if you have multiple capes, then yeah, maybe if this is like the most further out, there might be another one which might go below this, or there might be another one which might go on top of this. So, but yeah, you kind of find the average and then you keep things accordingly, right? Was a question on how do you make multiple capes. Don't Let's not ask too specific questions, I would say, too many specific questions, because it's very case by case, right? And anything which is very specific, it changes depending on the case. So I'm going to add a buttons now. Time to add buttons. I'm just going to commit to the thickness over here. So I'm going to use the IMM brush. I like a simple button like this for now. I want it to kind of push in a little bit more inside the mesh. So I have button over here. I'll do a drag dot for this. So I have the consistent scale. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 5 buttons for us. So I got the buttons. I could even make the chain, but I'll skip that for now. You can make the loops, but fine, we'll see that towards the end. But like you can see, like the key work was mostly done. How often do you take screenshots of the progress and make notes for making change? If it's an important note which I'll forget, I'll make a note. If it's not, I'm not thinking about making it. 6-1 below that belt. What does that mean, Aman? I don't get it. Transpose master, transpose. Oh, there's one more. Okay, yeah, there's one more. Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I did not see that. So let's change the posture a little bit now. So I'm going to do it on a global scale. And my move brush has decided to not work correctly. Don't know, it wants to snap. Yeah, yes. I see there's one more button below the belt. I need to add that. Yes. So Johnny is asking how much attention do you put into realism? I mean, if you have an object composed of multiple smaller objects, do you build that in the most realistic way? See, for the blockout, as what like this canister or the oil lamp is a good example. It's made out of multiple parts. I'm not doing that in the blockout because that's not the goal. Once I start moving to the high quality, then I'll do a refined blockout. A refined blockout is when I will make even the smaller elements like the chain or this hanging link over here. So that's when I'll do it. Here I have added the eye hole because I think it was quite characteristic to have that. So I did that. Is there a different moves that I can use? Never tried this. Let's see how that goes. So I want to give a little bit of an arch. I should have made a layer. I did not make a layer. Let's compare. So yeah, he has an arch to him now. Make his shoulders a little bit more, make his chest a bit more stronger. Pull this down a little bit. Gloves are, if I have to make gloves, I just need to extract it and that's it. So I think this is good when I compare it. So let's apply this now. Blockout shots for the portfolio, yes, it is helpful. It shows that you paid focus to planning, like how you would even show your, what you say, you would show your reference pack in your portfolio, right? So that way, even that is important. Showing the blockout is always helpful. Buttons got a little skewed, but I'm not worried about that right now. Six buttons. I hope everyone is happy. So more or less the blockout is almost there. Should a character artist learn both realistic or stylized, considering a beginner? I would take only one skill set initially. I will at least have three pieces. Let's say if I decide a domain, realistic or stylized, I will try to have three pieces of very high quality, either in realistic or three pieces of stylized. Once I have three of one section, then I will try to move on to stylized. But hopefully, if these are three very good pieces, that has already landed you some job or some work, right? All right. So that's the blockout over here. We spent about an hour and a half, and more majority of the blockout is kind of in place. Of course, I will probably refine things a bit more. Maybe I'll spend 30, 40 more minutes refining things. Aditya is asking, how do you do hair for AAA games? A lot of these questions that you're asking, like not just Aditya, but let's say a lot of these questions, what's the poly count like? How much time I should take? Should I do things this way or that way? All these questions are very subjective. Games use cards, games use action. They use cards more, so I would recommend learning how to do alpha cards. until cards are totally replaced by XGen pipeline, then you can learn XGen as well. But if you are unable to do hair cards because they are very daunting, then at least learn how to do XGen because you at least know something then, right? Let me save this file. Do you think we were able to capture majority of the art aesthetics for our character over here? The moment I add a cane, I would want to pose it. And I did not try to overcomplicate things by making the blockout way detailed. I did not try to do folds apart from this part, which I can still ignore. Everything is very simple construction where I was focused on silhouette and proportions and the construction aspect. That's it. And that's all you need to do to have a good blockout, really. And once I have this, I know I have understood what this character is about. Like, for example, I realize the body type has to be thinner, or maybe I'll realize I need to make his waist a bit more thinner over here, which means the body over here will also go thin, a little more thin. So all these things you're able to see and work on now, right? Since we have some time, would it be okay if I quickly talk a bit about Zombie Art School and how the mentorship program works? Is that okay for everyone? Type. Okay, so most difficult part is how to figure out the fabric type. You get the reference. So this is where you can use ethical use of ChatGPT or AI. So where you can put this image in the AI and ask, okay, what type of fabric this is, and that will give you the answer. That's like the easiest thing I can give you for a solution. So Johnny, you're asking very, very specific questions. I have a question. If you have an overlapping object like a thicker border for the cape, you make the cape first, or do you work on them on the border will come after the cape, right? Like once I have the cape, then I'll make the border. Logically, that's the thing. I don't want to review artworks right now. Sorry. Again, there's a lot of context that I need. The moment I start reviewing one artwork, then it goes into portfolio review. I do that separately. So I'm trying to restrict the nature of the conversation that we are having today. So again, to see a blockout, I need to see the reference. Otherwise, I cannot say whether it's looking good or not. But yeah, no, I'm not doing reviews right now. Sorry. We do that separately. I have separate webinars that we do portfolio reviews. Okay, so let's talk quickly about the mentorship at ZAS. So if you are not familiar, or I can just kind of communicate, I also run an online art school where it's an online art mentorship program. I call it Advanced Character Art Mentorship because advanced character might seem like, okay, it's a portfolio piece, but we are doing a lot of work in the background. And that's what this breakdown is going to help you understand. I'll come back to your question, Vivo. I'll just kind of explain this. So the mentorship that we offer is focused on characters, of course, and it's split into 2 stages. It's a 6 months mentorship or 24 weeks. There's a core character phase, which is for the first 10 weeks. And then there's the advanced character phase, which is for about 14 and a half weeks. Advanced characters, when you're building your portfolio character that will showcase your skills or your strengths and which goes on your portfolio. This is kind of easy to understand. But why do we have the core character phase, or why do we have a study phase? It is my belief, or I'll say through experience, what I've learned, to showcase any skill, not just showcase skill for the sake of it, but showcase skill which is required or relevant for industry standards. We need to indulge in studies to build that skill set first. I hope it makes sense. To showcase anything on your portfolio, which is like an industry standard skill set, we first need to indulge in studies to build that skill set. So, for example, if it's anatomy, we need to focus on doing a lot of anatomy studies. And heads and bodies are totally different. Head studies are different. Or body studies are different. Even in the bodies, you can separate out in different parts or segments. And let's say if you're doing hard surface, you do hard surface studies. You do studies first. Studies are not meant to be portfolio pieces. They are meant to develop skill. And once you have developed that skill, then you're able to apply that to building a portfolio piece. And with this, you're able to achieve a very high quality. And that's the reason why we spent the first 10 weeks doing focused studies on cloth sculpting, on marvelous, on building accessories, on understanding what is tech art or video game art. And not just low poly for the sake of it, but understanding the engineering or the science behind low polys, why we add triangles, where we add cuts, how to optimize polygons, how to unwrap the topology. It's never just about making things low poly. It's just a polycount and you make low poly. There's a clear engineering behind how these are constructed. And then we also have a very dedicated pipeline which teaches everyone how to do industry standard bakes. So the pipeline that we follow is something that we have been using. I have been using professionally, and that's exactly what I teach. So it's not the most easiest pipeline to absorb because it's not supposed to be easy. Bakes are having a lot of critical technical steps to be followed, and we follow that to do industry standard bakes. And then we do texturing in Substance Painter, and we integrate that all of this into Unreal Engine. We are going through the pipeline, and we are also building the skill set. So we are building a technical skill set. We are building an artistic skill set. That is the first 10 weeks. But a lot of what happens in the background is a lot of passive work, which I do in this first 10 weeks is rebuilding or redoing your fundamentals as an artist. And this is where I say something very controversial. Irrespective of who is coming into the mentorship, maybe there's a person with 8 years of experience, maybe someone who's very new, has no industry experience. I ask them to forget everything they know about art. Because again, according to me, a lot of times our knowledge related for art is very fragmented. We have knowledge in bits and pieces. We know certain concepts very well. Certain concepts are fairly new. Certain concepts we don't know anything about. Maybe we know what proportions is, but we still have a vague idea. We mix proportions with silhouette. We mix silhouette with forms and structure. All these fundamentals are weak. It's my job to ensure in the first 10 weeks that we have, or even across the mentorship, we bridge proper connection between these between these concepts, between this fragmented knowledge, so that it improves your decision making, which it in turn improves your critical thinking ability. Critical thinking is what is going to help you stand out as a character artist. This ability to think critically, which helps you solve problems. This is very underrated, and people think only skills are important. Yes, skills are important, but your ability to solve problems, that becomes very, very critical. And during the mentorship, these are the three goals that we have. I want to make sure we are building high skills. We have a very strong, solid foundation for art fundamentals, which we are redoing during the stage. And we passively develop critical thinking. So passively develop problem-solving abilities. So that is the work that also happens in the background. In the way we do feedbacks, in the way the tutorials are built, in the way we do live classes. So I'll talk a bit more about that. But let's say the first 2 weeks, we are spending 2 weeks, nothing but doing cloth sculpting inside of ZBrush. We don't use Marvelous. We don't use Maya, Blender, anything. Only ZBrush, because you also want to learn ZModeler, because ZModeler is very powerful. I'll not shove it down your throat, but I do recommend using ZModeler because it's very fast and efficient way of building artwork. And we also work on things like a shoe, because I believe if an artist is able to make a well-constructed shoe, which is very tricky, they are able to approach almost any accessory that is out there. So that's the first 2 weeks. Moving forward, we will be spending 4 weeks inside of Marvelous Designer doing 4 to 5 unique studies. Here we are doing at least 2 studies. I'll give a pure ref. The pure ref will have 20-25 references of different cloth references that you can choose from, and you can do the studies. Similarly, for MD stage, you would have another 40-50 images. You can choose from there and start doing the studies. These are some of the studies that students have done during the mentorship. We do fanny packs, backpacks, jackets, pants, variety of garments, so that you feel very, very comfortable achieving a very high skill set with the software. And again, it's not just about creating garment for the sake of it, but understanding again the science behind how tailoring works and how to make sure that the tailoring is projected in an aesthetically pleasing way. It's not just garment for the stitched or tailor for the sake of it. Aesthetically, it has to look good. So that is the goal. During this time, you have access to tutorials showing how I made these pants, these shoes, this field jacket in Marvelous. And these are all real-time videos. These are not time lapses, and I do not cut anything. These are all, you see the entire process from start to finish. And because these are complete videos, they are also very long. They are not short form videos of 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They go quite long. And then we have spent about 6 weeks so far. Then we go into ZBrush. We have 1 week. Depending on your appetite as an artist, you can take one garment piece or two garment pieces that you made in MD, and then we finish it to a scan-like quality inside of ZBrush. And from there, we would take that one garment, the shoe that we did initially, do the low polys, UVs, bakes, and textures, and engine integration. That's the first 10 weeks of the studies that we're doing. Moving forward, of course, for the advanced character, you have access to tutorials, which shows how I made Link from Legend of Zelda. Link videos are time lapses because you don't want to see 200 hours of high poly creation. That being said, I have about 85% of the high poly process covered for Link because I did struggle with the head. Head is not included, but I have a separate head tutorial which I made, just like a crash course on head. I have about I did the low poly process for the trousers and the shoes because low poly gets redundant. 50% of the texturing process is covered where I show leather, I show fabric, I show pants, I show metal. So different type of materials I have covered in that. And then for hair, I don't just have the making of Link's hair, but we have added recently a very in-depth pipeline on how to make very complex hair with XGen. Hair cards is also covered where we teach you, we cover the process. I don't have the complete hairstyle creation, but I teach the process or critical steps on how to make hair using hair cards. So learning is going to happen in 3 ways. The most direct form of learning is through tutorials, where it teaches you the process, the techniques, any high-level tips, or the workflow. So this is the most direct form of learning. The second form of learning, and which is where I'll say a little bit of secret sauce of the mentorship happens, is through the feedback that we do. Every artist who joins the mentorship, they are required to send updates at least 2 times a week. This is the bare minimum commitment that you're giving me, that you're going to send me updates 2 times a week, where 80% of the feedback is done in video format, where I'll download the file, do any changes, I'll do any script overs, I'll give you notes on that, and I'll send you back the file. Of course, not for you to use it, but to refer along with the video feedback. And this feedback is tailored to you. Tailored to you because everyone is a unique artist in their own right. Everyone has their own strengths, the weaknesses, their struggles. It is my job as a mentor to understand what your strengths are, what is your temperament like, how you absorb the feedback, what feedback is easier for you to absorb, what are the things that you're struggling with, and then I tailor my feedback according to that. So while the feedback has a certain general context of how to do things, a lot of it is tailored to your needs. 80% of it is in video format, 20% of it can be in paintovers or notes. And then apart from that, we are going to assemble every week once for 90 minutes to 2 hours to talk about art concepts, to do Q&A, to ask any queries, to ask any questions. But a lot of times we talk a lot, we engage a lot during these live calls. And that's how learning is happening in the mentorship. Now, beyond this, there are a few things I ask for anyone who's joining the mentorship. It is a very demanding mentorship. It's not, when I say demanding, I will not say it's hard, it's demanding. I demand a lot because I come with the same energy. So when I say I'm asking commitment of at least 25 hours per week for anyone who is working, and at least 45 to 50 hours for any artist who is not working. This is the commitment I ask, and consistently for 6 months. This is the critical part, the consistency. And then, of course, ensuring that we are being very communicative with each other. And this is the same thing I offer from my side. I am committed to your growth. I'll consistently be committed to your growth because I cannot have this thing where I don't do feedbacks for weeks together. I commit that I usually have a feedback revision coming within 24 hours. Usually, most of the time, it's even sooner. And I'm doing it consistently. I make sure that the feedback is covering uh, all the aspects that are required to help you grow or push forward. When I do that, I also make sure I don't spoon feed things because I want you to build that critical thinking. And yes, we want to make sure that together we collaborate to have the growth that you're seeking. I'll quickly just talk about the prices for any artist in India. It is 2,12,000 for 400, which you can pay in 3 parts or 6 parts, the fees. And for international artists, it is 2,500 US dollars, where you can pay it in 3 parts, 850, 850, 800. And more details for this can be shared when you reach out via email. If Pranav is here, Pranav, can you share the email address, the website, and the price sheet over on the chat so that people can see that?
Oh,
So yeah.
yes.
And apart from that, I keep recording new content in this mentorship and I keep adding it. Um, this is our mentorship platform where you're able to attend the live classes, you're able to upload your files for review, you're able to watch all the recordings. So let's say we have the military pants, for example, over here, videos for the military pants. Like, of course, the core character videos are there, but there are a lot of videos in general tutorials where I have very unique separate tips for marvelous designer. For ZBrush, there are a lot of techniques, including armor creation, hard surface creation covered. There are a lot of texturing videos, like someone said, uh, like the artists are doing good textures. That's because we break down everything. We break down everything from understanding it as a concept. Textures are not just about building materials. It's about first understanding what materials are, what textures is, how materials are separate from textures, and then how we build them in an organic, logical way. So there's a lot of work happening over there. We have a very in-depth pipeline for Unreal Engine, where we even show how to set up levels, how to light levels. Meta-humans, we have a very in-depth process for meta-humans, how to create master material. Yes, you do get access to all the tutorials after the course. I assure you, you will have access to the content for at least 4 to 5 years. Beyond that, I do want to offer even beyond that, but this is the bare minimum that we are offering. And even any new recordings that I'm adding will still, you'll be able to access it unless and until I'm making a new course separately. So head tutorials, we have lighting tutorials, action tutorials. So yeah, I also compile feedbacks that I do for other batches and put it over here because learning through others' feedback is also very quick and a fast way to learn. So yeah, and even advanced techniques are there, fabric tests, creating trims. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is there in this mentorship that I'm constantly adding. There is stuff that is kind of happening or cooking in the background. I don't want to talk about it yet until it is done fully. So yes, any questions now? That's for how the mentorship works. So Vivo was asking, why did I change the shape of the cape? Why did I change the shape of the cape? Why did I change it? I think this is kind of like a good ideal posed cape, which will allow for the cape simulation to also happen nicely. It will also allow it to move things around for the cape quite easily. Oh, thank you so much, Johnny. I can actually show some of the work that students have been doing in the mentorship. This is a new batch, and you can see some of the MD work they are doing for the core character. So I have artists for very new beginners. I have artists who are also experienced. Yes, commitment is important. Don't join the course, Kshitij, if you're not able to commit. Because you give your accountability to me, man. I am behind your ass. Then someone is also doing like a creature. So for Indian students, yeah, Pranav has answered that. Yes, yes, yes. These are all the core characters that are happening. And artists are planning their advanced characters over here. I can show some of the other advanced character that's happening. Or let me show some of the finished pieces that are there, not published right now, but they're there. So the artist is going through the presentation work right now. This one actually has the textures done, but I'll just show the work in progress textures and the finished high poly, in fact. So we have this as well. Yes, thank you so much. I think everyone is anyone who is committed and pushing, all of them are doing like great work. I wouldn't lie, some artists are not able to be committed because something might happen, and then they are not able to keep up. So that happens in a few cases as well. But yeah, that's some of the work that's happening. I only run 2 batches simultaneously. I don't have more than 2 batches. Each batch maximum about 16 people. So I limit the number of people I take. And at least for the last 2 batches, it has been going full, fairly quick. And this is the finished high poly of that blockout that you saw. In fact, it's good to actually compare. So the blockout and the high poly is very close to each other, not very different. Will you be able to help with anatomy skills? So the mentorship does not have studies to do anatomy, but if it's for the advanced character where you're working on something related to anatomy, I would first gauge the current anatomy skill set and then I can help from there. As a total fresh in 3D, haven't touched 3D, so I don't know. Will this? No, Ganesh. The course has a certain requirement. I need you to know a few softwares. Any DCC software first, like Maya or Blender or Max. And you should be familiar with poly modeling. You should be quite comfortable with poly modeling. Then in ZBrush, I need you to have at least 1000 hours of experience using ZBrush with digital sculpting. The reason why I say this is because it's not about how good your model looks, but you should be comfortable sculpting in the digital sculpting medium. Good to have would be, okay, I need you to know Marvelous Designer as a software, but even if you have never touched Marvelous Designer, it hardly takes a day or two to pick this up. It's like 1 day to learn MD. So yeah, good to have as a general understanding of the low poly pipeline or the game art pipeline. You should know Substance Painter as a software as well. Just know the software, that's enough. Rest we take care. And yeah, these are the requirements. So it's not for complete beginners who have never touched 3D. For that, I would actually recommend going to a friend of mine, First Form Art Academy, run by a friend. Again, I'm plugging him over here. So if anyone is interested, he's a friend and I helped him curate his mentorship. So anyone who's fairly new, this is like one of the best places to learn 3D and game art from scratch. And then you can come over here. I might have missed, but is there an introductory call chat before starting the mentorship program? So before you get enrolled into the mentorship, I'm going to have a one-on-one call where you can ask any questions, where you can ask any queries you might have. And after that, we then again have another introductory call where all the batchmates are there, the scope and the requirements of the mentorships are placed. But yeah, if you want to be part of the mentorship, then we actually get on a one-on-one call first. We schedule it. We ask, you can ask any questions. I look at your portfolio, understand your current skill sets, so that I know, and I make sure you're giving me the commitment I'm asking for, and then we take it from there. And I also understand your goals that you want to have in the mentorship. So what's the time right now? Okay, we have just crossed 2 hours. Any other questions? I hope this has been helpful. I hope everyone liked the demonstration that was done today, and it gave you some insights on how to build good blockouts. Thank you. I'm going to wait for a couple of more minutes to see if there are any other questions. And then I'll retire and have dinner. If I had dinner before the start of this session, then I would be sleepy half the time. Maybe I was. If someone has experience, don't have portfolio. It's a very, so Karthik is asking a very important question. What if someone has experience and they don't have portfolio? Industry is in a tricky place. And a lot of times people now, because they have choice to hire, there are a lot of applications. So people who are hiring have a lot of choice from a pool of artists that they can hire. So they would prefer choosing someone who has a portfolio and then they take it from there. Unless and until you know someone at the studio personally who is recommending you for your skill set or watching for your skill set, getting a job without portfolio is very difficult now. So yeah, that's the reality. Karthik. And yeah, one recommendation: don't, if you someone who's learning, who's starting out, unless and until it's a professional requirement, don't use AI. You're gonna your AI, if you're letting AI do critical thinking for you, then as an artist, the key core skill set that you're trying to build for our skills, which is critical thinking, we don't get to do that. So very simple reason: AI kills your critical thinking. So as an artist, our creative edge is our critical thinking or our creative take towards artwork. So don't outsource that to AI. Yes, what is required to get hired at a very simple level? Three things: portfolio. So you decide a domain. The domain can be you are specializing in realistic work, stylist work, creatures, or anatomy, or heads. You can decide your specialization. Have at least three pieces of that, right? And then apart from that, now you need to have at least decent communication skill. I'll not say you need to be very fluent or very good in English, but you need to be able to speak English. Or if it's a very native role in a certain country, then of course you need to be able to speak that native language. For example, if you want to get a job in a Japanese studio, then you need to be able to speak Japanese to some extent. So communication, but not communication is not just about being able to communicate in that language, but being able to comprehend each other, right? And then finally, your professionalism. This is something, it's a very much more deeper topic. We do cover this more in detail in the mentorship. What professionalism is all about, how to position yourself strategically so that you're able to get a job after once you have a good portfolio as well, and how to leverage your current skill or your standing to get a job. But these are the three key ingredients. Has AI affected the job market? If so, how? Again, it's a very deep conversation. Um, in 3D, I'm hearing mixed things. Some studios are using it, some studios are not. Uh, Recently, Epic has come out and say that using AI for 2D concepting. I know a lot of studios are using AI for 2D concepting. That has kind of cut down some of the time for doing concepting. But what has happened is they're using it to actually explore more things which they were not able to do earlier. So maybe you have this character. They would design the concept in the traditional way, taking the traditional time, but now they use AI to render that concept in different environments, different poses, different scenarios to see more things to ensure whether that design works or not. So the time is still the same, but they're using AI to do more stuff. Um, has it affected to some extent? Yes. Indies and other studios are using AI more because it's cost efficient. But AI is also leading to a lot of slop work, which is making their game not sell well. So it's kind of like a loop where studios will soon realize AI is not giving them the creative edge. And people usually want to play games where they are created by humans and not by AI. So it's not a very simple answer. A lot of times the questions are simple, but answers are never really simple because there are so many factors that affect that question, right? So I try to cover as much as I could. Uh, so V is asking if he has interest in environment. Do I know any mentorship structure? I don't. Sorry. Do we need something different to get remote job in a foreign-based studio? Again, remote job in a studio outside India, you need to be the best in the industry. So why would they want to hire you? And why can't they just hire someone from their own country? They only want to hire you if you have a skill set which they are not able to find anywhere else. So if you are the best at certain thing, that will help you get a job. And to be the best, it of course takes time. So that is what it is. Yeah. All right. I think I have answered all the questions. Okay, I'm exhausted now. All right. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. Please reach out to us if you're interested in mentorship. Please tell someone in your friend or circle if you feel this mentorship might be helpful for them. I will still try to come back and do this webinar once in a while. It takes time to prepare these, and then also it takes energy to exert. So, but I'll definitely try to do more of this, of course. But I hope you got to learn something new today. And thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming, hearing me out. As I mentioned, I did try to share my experience. I'll not say everything that I shared is what it is. I share from what I have learned over the past 2 decades I've been part of this industry. So yeah, thank you so much and have a good day. Recording, I cannot confirm if it will be there, but I don't know. After completing the mentorship, would I be ready for as a character artist? If you have done the commitment, if you have been consistent, I assure you, you will be ready. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good day, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and see you in the next one. Thank you.